afternoon. It's a Sunday afternoon. Can you believe it's a Sunday afternoon? And I thought we'd come and do a pretty impromptu live stream here today because I'm working on some projects here and I wanted to share with you the project as well as some techniques we're working on. So as you can see here, we've got this panel. Let's back away. And this is a panel that I'm working on to as a shop project. So I do shop projects. So basically, I'm building like these type of carts. Where is it? Like this. What do you call it? This bandsaw is on this cart that is basically 3/4 inch plywood with some casters and very simple, and it holds, some, sustainers. And I wanted to make some more in order to hold some other sanders. I've got this rigid oscillating sander there, and then back here is a Ryobi belt sander there. So I'm building carts for those at the moment. And these are the panels. One of the things about myself is that I'm a little bit cheap, right? Wood is expensive. Wood is expensive, and we want to save money. So instead of spending money buying new plywood, I'm always looking to harvest plywood from someplace, anywhere that I can possibly harvest. The side panels that I made for this are from these, 16 millimeter plywood that I got I saw it at my local Woodcraft. There was a pallet, and I just took the pallet, and I was like, okay, great. Luckily, the owner of my Woodcraft is always like, yeah, man, take whatever you want. Thanks, man, thanks. So kind of a standing invitation to take whatever pallets they put out. But what this is, these are actually like remnant plywood panels from different things. This piece here is like a piece of my brother, a piece of 3/4 ply that my brother had, lift around. It was all, because my brother's automotive mechanic, so he does, you can see all the oil and stuff is absorbed in that. This is just some old plywood, who knows where that came from. This one came from my friend's workshop. It was a big sheet that was sitting out in the rain for the last 12 months before I harvested it. And he was like, I don't need it, take it out of here. And this one's already been a little bit finished. So this is pretty heavily weathered, looked kind of like this. And I just sanded it down, and it cleans it up enough. And actually the panels on those shop carts are like this too, right? Like if you, you can maybe kind of see it. These are, I put dye stain on it to color it, and it makes it look, because I'm using a darker color, it looks pretty good. It doesn't have to be so perfect when you're done. Now this is not going to get stained. This is going to be one of the interior panels. This is the bottom panel of the cabinet. And like I said, I'm cheap, and so I don't want to buy sheets of plywood just for this. And so this is a way for me to work on techniques and how can I piece together different disparate pieces of wood, scrap wood that's lying around the shop, and make something usable out of it. Instead of throwing it away, instead of burning it, that's what I'm doing here. And so what I did is I basically joined these all together. I cut them out, cleaned up the edges, and then used dominoes to locate them. And the thing about a domino is that I don't know if you can see that there's a domino showing here, but basically, oh yeah, you can see a little bit of a domino right here. So there's a domino that I cut through. This is a 4 millimeter domino, the smallest domino that exists, 4 millimeters wide by 20 millimeters deep. And I'm not really using it necessarily for structure. I'm using it more as a reference pin, like how you would use a biscuit. So I'm just using that because the nice thing with the domino is it's so precise that it really aligns these top boards together, so we get a relatively flush. It's not perfectly flush because the boards are all kind of hemajang, but relatively flush glue up. On the back, you can see where all of the undulations are. Like you can see these two pieces here, and what these two boards are actually the cross members from a Harbor Freight moving cart. So I just put it all together, and you can see here, this is 3/4, this is, a little bit like maybe, 3/8, or whatever you call it, I don't know what they are, but, so it's not all the same. But I put the small ones in the center just to kind of give it, I figured it'd be stronger that way somehow. And And you can see on this one, there's actually just a little corner of this one larger piece that just to fill it out, I kind of need a dimension of 427 millimeters this way, 620 millimeters that way, and I just needed to fill it in. Now, one thing I did make a mistake on is I put these three pieces together, and I put 1, 2, 3. I put these 4 pieces together, joined them all together, clamped them all down, let them set up, and then finally brought them all together on a second glue up. What I should have done was squared off this edge, because I didn't, and when I clamped everything and pressed it out, it actually split the seam here. I'm not too worried about it because I don't think it's necessarily structural. Plus, there are 1, 2, 3 dominoes that are in there, so it's going to prevent it from flexing, and I'm not putting a lot of weight on it, so I'm not really going to worry about this split. Maybe I should, but I'm not going to. But what we're going to do is we're going to, prepare this for use by sanding it down. We're going to use the Rotex sander. I've got a Rotex RO150 FEQ. This is the current model. Now, this particular FESTOOL Rotex I bought used from a guy up in Pennsylvania who was trying to get rid of it. And here's the thing: you can get nice deals on FESTOOL tools. This one I was able to get for like $300, and the guy was like, man, I'm just going to toss in a bunch of papers. So he gave me a whole, like, boxes and boxes of abrasive. So I probably got a good $500-600 worth of stuff along with the deal. Now, it is a bit worn. Like, he did use it. He used it a lot. I cleaned it up a lot. And I think this is a 2014 build. Now, if you bought this new, it's like $600-700. I gotta say, this is my favorite grinder. Like, I do think this is worth all the money that they charge. It's a very, very good. Where's the date? Anyway, maybe it's 2021. I can't really. Let me turn the light on here. If ever you're thinking about buying FESTOOL, it's 2017, 6/17. So June of 2017. So the tool is, a good 8 years old. But the FEQ is still the current model. They have not changed models in quite a long time. FESTOOL, doesn't really change a lot of the models. Like, even one of the things I'm disappointed with FESTOOL is that the TS75, their largest saw here in the United States, it's still the TS75 EQ, which came out over 20 years ago. And it's like, come on, guys, you haven't updated this saw. You've updated the TS55 3 times, because they came out with the TS55. From the ATF55E, they came out with the TS55EQ, then they came out with the REQ, and most recently they came out with the FEQ. And in 3 generations of saws, they still haven't updated the TS75. So I'm a bit disappointed there. But you can get the rest of the Rotex. What makes the Rotex a really great sander is it has a gear-driven mode. It's a dual mode grinder. You can set the switch here to the left, and this is random orbit, and it operates like a regular 150 millimeter, which is a 6-inch pad, random orbit sander. And it's just like, it kind of operates like their ETS 150 or the ETS EC 150 and get good quality. This has a 5 millimeter orbit, which means that if you were to see it in random orbit mode, it moves about 5 millimeters in circles, which is a pretty aggressive, orbit. FESTOOL offers sanders in 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter, and 5 millimeter orbits. There are other models that they have that aren't really available. I think the Lex series has a 7 millimeter orbit, and the new upcoming ETSC2, which comes out in about 12 days, will have a 3.5 millimeter orbit. I don't know why 3.5, but that's kind of where they are. But this is 5 millimeter orbit, and then you put it into this other mode, what they call Rotex mode, by switching here. And this is what's a gear-driven mode. So when we put it into random orbit, it just kind of will move, right? It just kind of moves and does its thing and goes in any orbit. But if I switch it to gear-driven Rotex mode, it locks in. And now I can't spin it. What this does, it gets very aggressive. It is very aggressive. It's very, very powerful motor drive, I guess you'd say. So that's what we're going to use. We're going to use only the Rotex mode because people are like, oh, you know, it's meant for hogging out stuff. And yes, it is meant for, you can use it to hog out stuff, but you can use it actually to do finish sanding, like really fine quality sanding. I saw a video online that really blew me away, and I was like, man, I started doing that. And you can get the finish sanding fairly quickly. Now, again, this one I'm not so worried about because this is the bottom panel in a shop project. We're going to take it up to 180 grit. We're not worried too much about a certain, you know, if it's too 100% perfect, because, you know, we've already got a lot of, like, things behind us. You know, first, the qualifications of the shop project, it doesn't have to have that high standard. And then, if you look at the wood, I mean, it's already kind of mucked up. Like, this is all rough like wood, so we're not going to get too crazy. We're just going to go and enjoy working with the Rotex. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the changing the pad. The pad on the Rotex comes with this soft pad, and this is the standard pad. In order to change the pads, it actually twists off. So there's a green button here on the side. When you're in Rotex mode, we have a Rotex mode, so it's gear, it locks in. We're going to push this button in and rotate the pad around a little bit until it finds, there we go, it pushes in, and now that gives us a lock, and now I can just twist it, quarter turn, and it pops off. As you can see here, there is, you know, this cam that locks it in. And what I have here is I have the blue pad, which is the hard pad. They're not cheap, $64. I just bought this yesterday. And what the hard pad does, it's a harder pad, so it doesn't have as much flex here. And what that helps to do is it helps kind of to flatten. It's not really meant for flattening. If you really want to flatten it, you should use like a planer or something like that. But it just kind of helps to, you know, reduce the undulations that are in the sanding and really give it more positive pressure. And so in order to do that, we're just going to hold on to that button again, line up the tabs, and then twist it on. It's fairly straightforward once you get used to it. You just got to, if I can get used to it, I don't know. Am I doing it right? I'm probably doing it wrong. I hope to God that Garrett Sato from FESTOOL never sees this. He'll be like, what are you doing there, man? We're going to ban you. Okay, so our first grit that we have here, we've got this, what's on here? This is 80 grit. We're going to go to something a little bit heavier. We're going to go to this 40 grit. This is 40 grit granite. 40 is really, really rough. And, you know, really should do a lot of, you know, cleanup for us. So I'm going to put that on here. And now we're going to connect it to our, what we want to do is I want to also put down some padding underneath the piece, mainly because I just don't want it to slide around. If you're just joining us, if you have questions about sanding, let me know. Sanding with the Rotex. All right, so we got our CT MIDI here. We're going to first connect your dust collection, and then now we're going to connect our power. Now I have this light on. This is the FESTOOL Cal C light. It works as a pretty good raking light, and the raking lights are meant to be low, just so you can see any kind of like aberrations or issues in your surface. What we're going to do is we're already in Rotex mode. We're ready to go. One thing you want to do is that you want to hold on to the sander. It's a very squirrely sander. Like, it can get kind of crazy, and it's also a very unbalanced sander. So what that means is that you want to try to keep very even pressure on the pad instead of, like, if you let it fall here, you get a lot more pressure, less pressure in the front. So support it in the back, like so, and then turn it on. Then you kind of guide it. And we're going to also turn down our vac setting. Actually, I'm going to keep the vac setting at medium. What happens with the vacuum on the FESTOOL sanders is that it's creating suction, and it's sucking it down. And if you suck it down too hard, it starts to make, you know, swirl marks. But in this case, I got 40. I want to hog it out as heavy as possible. So I'm going to keep that suction kind of on the medium setting, just so we get as much pressure as we can. You can go higher if you want, You can play around with it, experiment with it, and then as we go up in the grits, we're going to lower it down to get a little bit less suction and allow the sander to glide, because there's surface tension that it needs to break. And yeah, so let's give it a try. So we're going to turn it on, support in the back, guide with the front. You kind of sometimes have to give it a little bit of strong arm. Just don't press down too much. I'm not going to press down much. I'm going to let the sand do the work, but I'm just going to keep it. I'm going to have to hold on with a little bit firm grip just to keep it under control. So here we go. And also make sure you put the sander down on the pad, on the surface when you start it, and then before you turn it off, take it off. Right? So it sounds counterintuitive, but start on the surface, then take it off. When you're ready to stop, take it off and shut it off. All right, so here we go. We're going to go across and then back and then across. All right, so there it is, 40 grit. Cleaned up this quite a bit, smoothened this out a I bit. And as you can see, I'm using a pica marker, right? So this has got a grease marker, and it kind of took some of it out. We're gonna get more into that. I'm not too worried about necessarily pulling it out. I did push down a little bit on them. You can push down. That may or may not be a good thing. Now, that's our 40 grit. Now we're gonna jump up, take off the 40 grit. Now we're gonna go to 80 grit. And this is FESTOOL Rubin. Rubin is an older version of FESTOOL's Rubin 2, which is the current version. And the Rubin's sandpapers are really designed to work on wood surfaces. So if you get the Rubin, you can get the Rubin 2 today. This one's still in pretty good shape. It is a little bit cloudy in there. So in order to solve the cloudiness, we're going to erase it. I've got one of these sander eraser, so we're just going to turn it on and give it a try. All right, look at that. That's nice and much cleaner. Also, one thing you want to do is you can vacuum it off or just brush it off, but you just want to brush off your surface to make sure that any kind of abrasive material that may have flaked off from your sandpaper is no longer on your work surface. Otherwise, this one will start to grind that in and give you swirl marks. So we're going to keep the same hard pad as well as the same medium suction setting for the 80, and then we're going to start to change everything once we move up to the next grid. So again, start up here and then come across and then back down. nice. That's getting a lot nicer. Now we're gonna have a little bit of undulations here. This is actually gouges in the wood surface because of the weathering. You can get your sander in there a little bit. I kind of did that here previously when I was working on this before, but I tend not to worry too much about it. Now, we went from 80, now we're gonna go up into the hundreds, so we're gonna remove the hard pad and go with a softer pad, the stock pad. Again, just take that off, hold that on there. There we go. And what do we have on here? We got 180. We're gonna need to go to, we came from 80, we got a whole little set of pads here. What do we have? 320, 220, 500. The guy that previously owned this had a lot of 500 paper. I don't know what he used it for. Here we are, 100. Okay, we're gonna go 100 on the Reuben, then to 150, and then we're gonna jump to the 180 that we have prepared for us over there. All right, put that away. Now this is Reuben as well, 100. And as you can see, it also is a little bit dirty, so we're gonna hit the eraser on it. Oh, yeah, be careful with that. That was not a good one. Again, we want to make sure we brush off any kind of materials that might be on the surface. Hopefully this will work better. All right, here we go. 100 Reuben on the regular soft pad. Okay, one thing that I forgot to do was to turn down the suction. We wanted to turn down the suction, so let's start again here. Turning down the suction to the lowest setting allows the sander to float better. It'll still provide enough suction to pull up any of your sawdust that's being generated by sanding, but it won't stick the sander hard to the surface. So allow it to glide. It will reduce any kind of swirl marks. So it's just a much better way to approach sanding. And this is really why you want to get a nice extractor, whether it's a FESTOOL or Fine or whatever you may have. Even the Hercules is the adjustable suction. That just gives you so much more range to get better quality results. All right, let's go. Okay, that was good. 100. Again, wipe off all the excess. So now we're going to go from 100 with the Rubin, and now we're going to go to FESTOOL Granat, which is their more general purpose use of abrasives. But this is 150 grit, but really a nice. I really like the Granats. You'll hear a lot of people talk about, you know, if you're watching YouTube, you hear a lot of people talk about the 3M Cubitron Extract, which is a mesh-based paper. That's a really great one. What? And that's a really great paper abrasive, but I think that if you're within like 3M, FESTOOL, Mirka, they're all the highest end of papers. You know, people say they're really expensive, and they're definitely pricier than, let's say, if you're buying Diablo or if you're buying other, Bauer at Harbor Freight. But you're going to get longer life, better quality results. So I don't really worry too much about it. I've got Mirka, I've got Norton, I have FESTOOL and Cubitron Extract, so I just use whatever is available to me at the moment. So now we're going to go up to 150 and do it again. We're at the lowest suction setting again. Right, there we go, 150. And now we're going to jump up to 180. FESTOOL Granat again. Just line up the holes. Now you may have noticed that this particular hole pattern does not necessarily match the newer pad. Right, this is what they call the slipstream holes. This is a little bit older in style, and these Granat papers are also the older papers. The newer ones have more holes. They just allow a little bit more breathability, I think. It doesn't necessarily affect the performance and the quality so much of your sanding. All right, now here we go. There it is. This rough, mosaic pattern of plywoods now sanded down with the FESTOOL Rotex, only using the Rotex mode, not random orbit mode, but the most aggressive, hardcore mode of this grinder. And we can take it all the way to 180. We can actually go all the way to 220 and beyond on this setting, but for this purpose, we don't really need to. And the finish that I'm probably going to put on it, it doesn't really need anything more than 180. But hopefully that shows you that you can do some pretty interesting stuff with the FESTOOL Rotex. I think it's a beast of a sander. It's a great sander. It's my favorite sander of all of them. And I do love all of the FESTOOL sanders. I've got quite a few. I've got the ETS 125, the ETS EC 150/3. I've got the DTS 400. I've got this, and I've also got the smaller Rotex, the RO90. So I've got a lot to choose from, and this is still a great. They're all good for certain tasks, but this is just a heck of a beast of a sander. So if you're thinking about getting one, look for the used market, especially if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to spend $700. Now here's something that you might consider if you're really stuck with for cash. You can look at something. There's a bunch of other sanders on the market that are kind of like this. Vevor has one that I've heard about. Triton has something. Basically Triton has a model of a gear-driven sander that looks exactly to me like the previous generation FESTOOL Rotex. This is a redesign that they came out with maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. The one before this is the one that the Triton looks like. And then Bosch also has one that's called the GET 75/6N. I also have that sander as well. That I used to borrow my friend Matt's Rotex 150, and then one time I was working on a project and he needed to do a project for himself, so he was like, I need to ask for it back. So I gave it back to him, and I was like, man, I need to get one, and I didn't have the cash to buy this, so I found the used GET 75 online and bought that. And I gotta be honest, this is awesome. This is an awesome sander. Love it to death. But that GET 75/6N, it's a $350 MSRP. And I don't know how much of a difference there really is between that sander and this one. Like, there are accessory differences. This has the plug-in cable, which makes it so much more convenient to use. But that sander is probably the equivalent to this as far as sanding quality, dust extraction. It's really a great sander. And I've been meaning to do a video where we're going to do this sander and the GET 175 and put them head to head on maybe something like a project like this and see. But I think that you'll find that you can go for this and stay within the FESTOOL system, or get the GET 75 and save some money. Either of those two will be excellent options. The rest I don't know about. Like, I've seen people comparing like regular random orbit sanders to this sander, and I don't know why they do that, because the whole thing about this, while it does do random orbit sanding, you don't need to use it. Like, if we wanted to use random orbit, we'd switch it here. We'll do a little bit of random orbit just to show you, and then just turn on it. It sounds so let's put it in the gear mode, right? We'll put it in the gear mode, and you can hear it. So like some of the FESTOOL tools, a lot of growling and just kind of anger. Then if we put it into random orbit mode, now it'll spin. You're gonna hear it's gonna sound even a little bit different, but it just sands differently. So you can hear a little bit of difference in the way it sounds, not a tremendous amount, but this does, the random orbit mode is like having the ETS 150, the ECS EC 150 or the ETS 150 in the 5mm versions. This is a 5mm orbit, so it will work. It does have a different balance. Another nice thing you can do is, if you really want to get more into it, you can take this dust collector off, like that, and now you can use this as a polishing. You put other different pads on it and do polishing with it for, if you want to polish stuff. And so you take off the dust extraction, so you get a little bit of a different hold on it. But just some options in case you're thinking about the RO150 FEQ. It's really, like I said, it's a great sander. I love using it. And yeah, and so as you can see the results here, this is sanded completely from rough and worn plywood that's stained and discolored. And we started off with 40 grit Reuben, went to 80 Granat, back to 100 Reuben, then 150 Granat, and then finish at 180 Granat, and it's perfectly smooth. It's really beautiful, beautiful. I mean, it's just beautiful, and because it's the gear-driven mode, it does it very fast. So if you had a different sander, like if I had my old Ryobi, it would take me. This is why people don't like sanding. If you have other sanders that are not enjoyable, and then your hands are all very shaky. All right, so that's just one way to use your RO150. In case you have questions, if you're watching this after the live stream is over, drop questions down in the comments, and I'm happy to see if I can answer them. But yeah, you can do really great quality sanding with the RO150's Rotex mode, and and also I should note that since I mentioned the GET75, the Bosch, you get equivalent results with the Bosch. I've used the Bosch in this manner, and here the joints are perfectly smooth. Like I can't even feel, unless there's voids like that and here, but it's really just beautifully smooth. So you get some really great results. And of course, if you're using with better quality wood, like hardwoods that are, you know, better planed and not as all like mucked up as this one, you'll get even better results. All right, so hope that helps. Thanks for tuning into this impromptu live stream. We'll have more of the FESTOOL Fest coming up soon, and some other videos for some builds. But yeah, just thought I'd share with you today on a Sunday. So hope you have a great one, and see you next time.